Dear my chosen, this message finds you in the quiet space where your heart rests after giving everything it had. Heaven itself has been watching you from that place. There are loves that are loud and visible, and then there are loves like yours, silent, loyal, enduring, and so pure that even the unseen realms pause to witness it. You loved your soulmate in a way that was not taught to you by the world, but remembered by your soul. You did not love to possess, you loved to protect. You did not love to control, you loved to understand. You did not love to escape loneliness. You loved because your spirit recognized another spirit. That kind of love does not go unnoticed, not on earth, and certainly not in heaven. Heaven was shocked, not by how much you loved them, but by how deeply you honored yourself while loving them. My beloved soul, you carried love with responsibility. You carried it with patience. You carried it with restraint. Even when your heart wanted to speak louder, you knew when to be quiet, when to step back, when to give space, and when to simply hold the energy of love without demanding a return. That is not ordinary love. That is chosen love. Many people love when it is easy, when they are reassured, when they are celebrated. But you loved in silence. You loved in waiting. You loved in uncertainty. And you still chose dignity over desperation. Heaven does not see love as words or promises. It sees love as alignment. Your alignment never broke even when your heart trembled. That is why your name echoed in places you could not hear. You were chosen not because your path was painless, but because your soul could handle depth without becoming bitter. You did not harden when you were misunderstood. You did not turn cold when you were not chosen immediately. You did not seek revenge when your devotion was questioned. Instead, you chose grace, you chose emotional maturity, you chose to process in silence rather than perform your pain for validation. My beloved soul, that is rare. Heaven is not impressed by loud suffering. It is moved by quiet endurance. Your endurance carried love without losing self-respect, which is something even angels study. You loved your soulmate without trying to reshape them into your expectations. You saw them as they were, with flaws, confusion, fears, and unfinished healing, and you still treated them gently. You did not rush their growth. You did not shame their delays. You did not pressure their awakening. You held space instead. That kind of love feels unfamiliar to many people because it does not come with chains. It comes with freedom, and freedom can scare those who are still learning how to stay. Yet you did not withdraw your love just because it was not fully understood. If this resonates with your journey, let me know in the comments. Your story matters, my beloved soul. Heaven noticed how you never abandoned yourself, even while loving deeply. You listened to your intuition when it asked you to pause. You honored your boundaries even when your heart wanted to cross them. You walked away from moments that would have cost you your self-worth. You chose silence over arguments. You chose prayer over reaction. You chose faith over fear. That is why your love became a testimony. Not everyone is chosen to love like that, because loving like that requires strength, not weakness. It requires knowing who you are, not losing yourself in someone else. There were nights when you carried conversations in your heart that you never spoke aloud. Nights when you asked the universe questions you never demanded answers to. Nights when you released control and trusted timing. Instead, heaven heard those unspoken prayers. Heaven saw how you asked, not for possession, but for alignment. You did not beg for them to choose you. You asked for truth. You asked for what was meant. You asked for clarity, even if clarity meant letting go. My beloved soul, that request alone separates you from many. You were not attached to outcome. You were committed to integrity. You loved your soulmate in a way that did not try to rescue them because you knew healing cannot be forced. You did not become their savior. You remained their mirror. You reflected honesty, calm, and emotional depth. You allowed them to see themselves through the way you treated them without lectures or pressure. That is a divine way of loving. Heaven was shocked because such love usually only exists in higher realms. Yet you carried it in human form. You balanced emotion with wisdom. You balanced affection with awareness. You balanced hope with realism. You understood that love does not mean losing yourself. You understood that love does not mean enduring disrespect. You understood that love does not mean sacrificing your peace. So when moments came that tested your worth, you stepped back with grace. You did not collapse. You did not chase. You did not create chaos. You trusted that what is aligned will never require you to abandon your soul. That trust is rare. That trust is sacred. That trust is what made heaven lean closer to your story. You may not realize it yet, but the way you loved rewired timelines. It softened hearts. It planted seeds of awareness in places that were once closed. Even if your soulmate did not fully understand your love at the time, their soul recognized it. Souls always recognize what is real. Your love became a reference point, a standard, a quiet memory they will carry when they are finally ready to love with the same depth. Heaven was not shocked by romance. It was shocked by responsibility. You loved without ego. You loved without performance. You loved without fear of losing yourself. My beloved soul, your journey is not about proving love. It is about embodying it. You were never meant to beg to be chosen because you were already chosen by the divine to experience love in its purest form. Whether the path continues together or transforms into something higher, your soul remains untouched by regret. You did what you came here to do. You loved honestly. You loved consciously. You loved bravely. And heaven honors that there is something sacred about the way you continued loving, even when certainty was absent. Heaven observed that space closely. You stood in a place where many would have demanded clarity, labels, or reassurance. Yet you chose understanding over pressure. You understood that true love does not rush another soul's awakening, and you respected timing even when your own heart felt ready, long before circumstances aligned. That patience was not weakness. It was wisdom born from self-awareness. You knew that forcing love only creates resistance, while allowing love creates truth. Heaven watched as you balanced longing with restraint, desire with dignity, and hope with grounding. That balance is what marked you as chosen. You felt deeply, my beloved soul, but you never allowed emotion to turn into chaos. When confusion arose, you turned inward instead of outward. You reflected instead of reacted. You processed silently instead of projecting pain. That inner discipline is rare because most people leak their wounds onto others. You carried yours with care. You did not use love as a bargaining tool, nor did you use silence as punishment. Your silence was sacred, a form of listening to both your heart and the divine. Heaven recognized that silence is strength, not absence. You trusted that if a connection is real, it does not require constant explanation. You trusted that what is meant will find its way without force. That trust did not come easily. It was built through self-worth, emotional maturity, and a deep understanding of your own value. You did not confuse intensity with intimacy. You knew intimacy grows in safety, not urgency. Heaven saw how you protected the connection by not overwhelming it. You also protected yourself. That is what made your love so powerful. You did not tolerate emotional inconsistency just to stay connected. You did not compromise your values to be chosen. You noticed patterns. You observed behavior. You listened to energy rather than excuses. And when something did not feel aligned, you stepped back instead of trying to fix it. That stepping back was not rejection. It was respect both for yourself and for the other soul's process. Heaven honors those who know when to hold and when to release. You were aware that love cannot grow where fear leads, so you chose calm, you chose grounded presence. You chose to show up authentically without masks. You did not play games to keep attention. You did not withhold affection to gain control. You remained consistent, even when the other side fluctuated. That consistency is what shocked heaven, because consistency in love requires emotional stability. And emotional stability requires inner healing. You did the work quietly, without applause, without validation, without needing to be seen. You loved in a way that allowed the other person to be human. You did not idealize them beyond reality. You did not place them on a pedestal that would later collapse. You saw both light and shadow and still chose compassion. You understood that confusion does not always mean lack of feeling. Sometimes it means unresolved wounds. Yet you also understood that compassion does not mean self-neglect. That understanding is advanced soul wisdom. Heaven entrusts such wisdom only to those who will not misuse it. There were days when distance felt heavier than closeness, when unanswered energy created questions in your mind. Still, you did not spiral. You did not assume. You allowed space to reveal truth. You allowed time to speak. You trusted that whatever was real would remain, and whatever was not would fall away naturally. That level of emotional regulation is something most people only reach after many lifetimes. You carried it instinctively, as if your soul remembered it. You never tried to replace yourself to stay relevant. You never dimmed your light to avoid intimidating someone else's shadows. You remained yourself, grounded, intuitive, emotionally intelligent. You did not chase reassurance because you had already reassured yourself. You did not beg to be chosen because you already knew your value. That self-knowing created a frequency that heaven responds to. When a soul knows itself, it does not need external confirmation. That is the mark of someone chosen for higher love lessons. My beloved soul, even when love felt incomplete, you did not allow bitterness to enter your heart. You did not speak ill. You did not poison the connection with resentment. You chose neutrality and grace. You understood that some connections are not meant to be forced into form, but honored for what they awaken. You honored the lessons without clinging to the outcome. Heaven was moved by that surrender. Surrender is not giving up. It is trusting divine orchestration beyond human understanding. You loved your soulmate in a way that allowed transformation, not dependency. You wanted